Congratulations.
We are Premier League. Sorry, we are Premier League.
Well, that's a nice welcome to everybody. So good evening and welcome to I don't know what this is, Matt, maybe week 12 or 13 of our UB40 Zoom sessions.
And always 12 and not 13.
Yeah, so yeah, unlucky for some. And there you have it. We've got the legendary Mr. Fix-It himself, Winston Francis. How are you doing, Winston?
Blessings. So nice to be here.
Excellent. Well, as usual, what the format for this is that it goes live for about 20 minutes on Facebook and some other social media platforms, and then everybody has to get to the mobiles and get across to the UB40 app where they can watch it the rest of the evening. And typically what happens is we get one or two members of the band turning up, but Robin likes to come at about 5 past. Because he's just getting to that age now, I think. So
please don't go there.
And how's Gilly doing? You got what's that you've got between your fingers, Gil?
It's a Park Drive, mate.
Oh, is it? Right, I see.
Yeah, Park Drive.
Well, it's legal now.
Well, it probably is where you live, mate, but not here.
Yeah.
What, in Watford?
Well, I live in Watford.
Oh dear. Good. Well, listen, for everybody tuning in live, we've got some. I say this every week, but we've got some really good music because we've got Winston's new collaboration with UB40, which is on their album, which is to be released at some point this year, called Bigger Bag of Rhythm. So that's a track that we're going to play some of tonight. And also we're gonna play obviously UB40's version and Winston's version of Mr. Fix-It. And we've asked Winston for some things that have inspired Winston in terms of where his musical influence came from, and some of his music as well from recent times. So we've got a lot of music to get through. We've got a lot of not so much questions, but a lot of conversation that we'd like to have with you, Winston, if that's all right.
Well, it's a pleasure, man. Pleasure.
Excellent, good stuff. So well, I suppose everybody on this session I expect would know who you are, but could you give us a little bit of a background, perhaps, how you got into the music industry way back when?
Well, like a lot of Jamaicans, I got in through the cider of the church, as a kid going to school, you're singing in school, and the priest, the nuns, because I went to a Catholic school, and the nuns, listen to you. And whenever the choir comes up for them to pick somebody for the choir, they chose the guys that have a voice. So I guess they thought I had a voice, so they put me in the choir.
Amazing.
And that's how I started. But before that, while I was doing that, singing in the choir, I was a contortionist, and I started from 7 years old. So I was doing tours, with a what they call it, a road show.
Okay.
And because being a contortionist, I was bending myself in different shapes. Don't ask me to do it now because I can't. But I did that until I started singing, in competitions in Jamaica.
Oh, amazing! So that got you. So you already had the voice, but then sort of going on tour, but not musically, kind of got you used to that world.
Yes.
And then I'm sure it.
So then, what show business side?
All right. So then, what was your lucky break? Or did you start? Because obviously we know that way back when. I mean, you were. Robin mentioned this in the little advert for this session, that you were into reggae before reggae existed.
Well, that is true. That is very true. Because in Jamaica then, at that time, you can imagine there was no TV, no radio. There was only one radio station in Jamaica, which was Radio RGR. And
so what period are we talking about?
I'm talking about 50s, right, coming up into the 60s.
Okay.
We only had one radio station in Jamaica, Radio RGR. So if you lived in the country, you couldn't get RGR.
And what were you listening to then when you were growing up? What tunes were on?
Mostly American music.
Yeah.
Jim Reeves, country and western, gospel, and R&B, which was like Sam Cooke, which he was my favorite.
Yeah.
Nat King Cole, I love Nat King Cole. you know, and Perry Como, and this was our thing. You know, that is the music we grew up listening to.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, evening, Robin. Oh, just unmute yourself, Rob.
Yes, so you know, music was everything that there was a radio station in Miami called WINZ, and you know, if you had a good radio, you could tune into WINZ, and that's where you got most of your music from.
And did every household? Oh, well, I presume not every, but did a few households in Jamaica have these radios? Did you go around to each other's homes to listen, or were you lucky enough to have a radio in your household? You know.
Well, the more affluent people had radios, because you can imagine at that time a good radio would cost anywhere between £7 and £10, but the average salary was like 7 shillings a week.
Wow!
So
Unbelievable.
Sorry, guys. Can I just explain? Me and Jimmy were in another meeting talking to each other.
That's an away.
Hey,
Where is everybody then? Where is everybody? We were in last Friday's meeting.
Oh dear.
You know when we had a meeting the other day, Matt?
Yeah.
We just both clicked on that old link and we were both in the room going, where are they all? Sorry, guys. Hi, Winston. How are you, man?
I'm great, man. Good to see you.
Winston.
Good to see you. Hey, bro, what's up?
How you doing, man? You're all right?
I don't like it. There's a sign behind you that says police.
Well, you know, it's funny you should say that, because I was going to ask for directions.
So usually when we see that, we start running.
Well, exactly, yeah. But this is the friendly neighbourhood Bobby we're looking at here.
Oh, dear.
Oh, man.
So I thought I'd make a little...
We start again, guys.
Well, we were taking a trip. We were taking a trip down memory lane, and Winston was just giving us a little bit of an overview.
We're talking to one of the originators, one of the fathers, King Cool himself.
Well, I just said, Rob, paraphrasing what you said midweek, which was Winston was around before reggae.
Yeah.
That's not an insult. That's absolute truth.
Yeah, and we were just talking about, Winston was just telling us how he got, listening to the airwaves from America and Sam Cooke and Nat King Cole and people like that. So
Sam Cooke, man.
That's kind of where we'd got to with it. So Winston, did you then, how did you then get in? Where did reggae come from at that time? So you're all sat there, each other's homes listening,
Reggae wasn't around. So we were singing, most of the guys like Alton Ellis,
Ska.
Before reggae came around, these guys, we were singing in competitions. There was a guy called Veer Johns who had weekly shows, and you would the competition would last maybe a year, because he had semifinals, semi-semifinals, semi-demifinals, and it just kept going and going and going and stretch it out as long as possible. And every time you won, but this is where a lot of the old guys in the business, learned, it was like going to university, because when you went to these shows in these competitions, before you get into the theater, and you see people in the queue going into the theater, everybody had a bag, a brown paper bag. And in this bag, they had rotten tomatoes and rotten eggs, and So if you didn't win, not even if you didn't win, but if you didn't sound right, if you started singing and you were flat or sharp or anything like that, you'd see the guys start going, potatoes, rotten oranges, all these things they would be throwing at you. So you had to, before you went on stage, you had to practice with a broomstick, and sing to your broomstick and do your moves, and make sure you're doing a good show. If not, you'd end up with an egg, in your face.
Quite right too. I mean, people are paying a lot of money to come and see a show, probably a big proportion of their wages they spend on to be entertained,
Yeah. So they wanted to be entertained. So if you didn't, you'd be stoned.
Wow, unbelievable. So at what age were you then when you started recording and sort of getting into music? You know.
Well, when I started recording, I must have been about 16, 17.
Okay.
You know, and this was a long time because after, you know, we were doing all these shows, you know, with Veer Johns, you know, I started to learn a trade. You know, I did my apprenticeship, you know, and then, you know, I realized that this wasn't going to work for me. You know, I was into music, so I started a group, and there was a competition in Jamaica called A Star Is Born, and everyone said, you know, my group. I had a group called the Sheridans, and they said
Pat Kelly. With Pat Kelly.
Yes. Pat Kelly came. We got Pat to join the group, you know, because we needed a good tenor, and Pat came in and joined the group, and everybody said we won the competition, but the promoters said, you guys didn't listen to what we were saying. The name of the show is A Star Is Born, not Stars Are Born. So we can only give it to an individual. So they gave it to the guy that used to sing with Alton, and he abandoned Alton to do the show. It is a guy called Eddie Parks, because there used to be Alton and Eddie. Yeah. But for the competition, you know, he quit with Alton and he took the show by himself. And they gave it to him, and he went to New York. He went on the Ed Sullivan Show. You know, he got a lot of promotion and did really great things, for which everyone was proud of him. You know, and after
what year are we talking, Winston? What year is this?
I'm talking about
mid-60s.
Yeah, mid-60s. Okay. Yeah, mid-60s.
Cool.
I was a young man then.
Well, yeah. I think I was still in nappies. I think, no, mid-60s.
Yeah.
I was about 10, I think. No, I wasn't. I was 8.
So probably still in nappies, Jim.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was 8 years old. Probably still in nappies. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So after the
doing them song competitions, weren't they?
Huh?
Everybody that you talk to from the reggae scene, all the fathers, all started in those song competitions.
Oh yeah. You had to. That was where you had to start, because nobody would give you a look in unless they'd say which competition you won. Yeah. You know, and if you didn't win a competition, you know, next, you know.
So that was the benchmark of the day then, winning these local
you had
competitions.
And if you won a competition, then very often you get a record deal to do that song that you won the competition.
For sure.
I remember Hopton Lewis with Grooving Out on Life. That was competition winner. I remember it well.
Yes.
Brilliant song.
Wow.
Brilliant
song.
song.
And that was a great song for Upton.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Man. And he was a great artist. You know.
So
and like I said, you know, the reason why these guys, you know, like Upton Lewis, you know, the reason why he was a professional from the earlies is because he went through the ranks of doing these competitions. And, you know, if you didn't get stoned, you know, with potatoes and eggs and tomatoes, then, you know, I'll stand a chance. I can, you know, make the grade, you know. But, you know, this is a true story. Yeah. I went back to Jamaica after I was in the States. I came back to Jamaica, and I was coming down Church Street, and I saw this guy. He was really big guy, you know, well dressed, you know, beautiful suit. And when I passed him, he turned back and he said, "Winston Francis?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "How you doing, man?" And I said, "Fine." You know, he says, "I haven't seen you in a long time. Where you been?" I said, "Well, I've been to the States." He says, "All right." And he had 2 beautiful women walking with him. And he turned to them and he says, "You see this guy? This is the guy why you're now working for me." And one of the women says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, I went into a competition at the Palace Theatre because I wanted to sing." And he said, when I heard this guy singing during when he started to do the interviews and he was doing the rehearsals, when I heard him singing, I just left and I went back and I started into engineering.
Brilliant.
If I didn't hear him, maybe I'd still, you know, be trying to do music, you know, but this is the guy that changed my mind. And he says, "Thank you so much, Winston."
That's a great story.
You know, but believe me, you know, in those days, you know, you had to get a start, and you needed the confidence to start. you know. So this was the way.
So around then you sort of moved into the mid 60s. So who are you starting to rub shoulders with then? If you're 16, 17, you're starting to record yourself and start to perform. Actually, people that we'd know.
Well, what happened is that there were several bands in Jamaica then, because like I said, you know, there was no TV, you know, and hardly any radio. So there were a lot of bands started, you know, coming together. You know, and you had bands like Byron Lee and Dragonaires, you know, Keshin, of so many different bands, you know, and, you know, there was a band called Carlos Malcolm and his Afro-Jamaica Rhythms. And Carlos offered me a job to sing. And
didn't you start doing that in America?
Huh?
Didn't you sing with him in America?
Oh yeah, we went on tours to the States. Yeah, oh yeah. Because while we were in Nassau, the Grand Bahamas, you know, and everybody's, you know, by then everybody was buying a lot of nice fancy clothes, American clothes, and, you know, so everybody wanted to go back to Jamaica and show off their nice clothes, you know, and I met a girl and I decided I was going to stay. So when the band went back to Jamaica, you know, I just stayed in Miami, you know, and when I went back, I remember the first day I went back to Jamaica, there's a guy in Jamaica called Jackie Estick. And Jackie, you know, he was a fantastic writer, a good singer, you know, and we were in kindergartens together. You know, we all went to school together. And when I got back to Jamaica, I saw Jackie and I said, what's this big scene I hear? The recordings are popping. Who's the best company to work for? And he said, I'm going to take you up to Cox and Dodd. And that was 1967, 68. And he took me up to Coxon and I didn't have to do an audition, right? So Coxon saw me, he said, oh yeah, I remember you, you know, you're with Carlos, you know, and he said, I know your elder brother, Charlie. I said, really? And he says, yeah. And, you know, I just, you know, walked around the studio, looked around, and he showed me everything and said, whenever you're ready, you know, I'll introduce you to some of the guys. And the first person that, you know, he introduced me to was Ernest Ranglin. And Ernest, you know, I knew Ernest because Ernest used to jam with Carlos. And I used to jam with Ernest sometimes, you know. And I just fell into it, you know. And while I was at Studio One, a lot of the other guys were encouraging me to come and sing, you know, with like Duke Reed. But I didn't like Duke.
You did. No one did.
well, I tell you the reason why I didn't like Duke. Duke bust my ass with a belt, a big leather belt one day.
Wow.
Right, and the reason why he whooped me, I stole some of his bottles.
What you do?
Even bottle.
Okay.
he had a liquor store. And at the liquor store, he had all these crates of bottles, you know, packed around the side of the building. And each crate full of bottles was a 2 and 6pence, half a crown, right? But nobody was watching it. So if you picked up a crate and walked into the store and says, I brought you a bottle, his wife would say, take it and put it on the pile, and she'd give you half a crown.
Yeah.
So I went and I did it.
So basically, you got
Winston, Jim, just before we carry on there with that tale, I need to just let everybody know that we're coming up for 20 minutes, and those people watching on Facebook, etc., the stream's going to drop. So I just encourage everybody to go across to the UB40 app. Now, whilst they're doing that, Matty, what about if we play Winston's version, the original version of Mr. Fix-It, and then whilst that's on, then you know, the guys can switch over to the app, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that, if that's okay.
Fantastic.
Let's do it. Cheers, Jim. Thanks.
If you're feeling lonely because you're one and only, boy has found a girl and ran away. Just curious. have scattered all across the ground of loneliness. Just to reach for your phone, I'll be there at home. My name is fixed, I'll be there. Love is not a bed of roses. Life's not the easy game it seems. If you